Most people think Cicada 3301 was eventually solved. It wasn't. In 2012, a single image appeared online containing a hidden message, and it kicked off one of the most sophisticated puzzles the internet has ever seen. Thousands of people spent years cracking layer after layer, but the final layer, the one that matters most, has never been cracked. On January 4th, 2012, the image showed up on an anonymous message board. Just a black background and white text that read, "We are looking for highly intelligent individuals." No name, no context, no explanation. If you were scrolling that board that night, it would have looked like nothing, one more strange post in a sea of strange posts. Most people scrolled past it. But if you were the kind of person who didn't, you were about to find out why. Even the name carries a hidden logic. Cicada 3301 isn't a random string of characters. 3301 is a prime number, the same kind of building block used throughout the puzzle's ciphers, suggesting the number itself was chosen deliberately as a signature written in the same language as everything hidden inside it. Those who looked closer found something strange hidden inside the image itself. Buried in the file, invisible unless you knew exactly where to dig, was a second layer of text, sitting quietly underneath the visible one like it was never meant to be found by accident. It pointed to a website, and that website contained nothing but a countdown, ticking toward a date nobody had been told the meaning of. When the countdown ended, a new set of numbers appeared. But they weren't random. They matched an ancient runic alphabet, one used centuries earlier to write Anglo-Saxon poetry. You had to already know that alphabet existed just to recognize what you were looking at, let alone read it. Once decoded, the runes formed a phone number. Call it, and you heard a robotic voice reciting another string of numbers, over and over, flat and mechanical, with no explanation of what they meant or where they led. This is where it stopped being a puzzle for casual internet users and started being something else entirely. Solving it required cryptography knowledge most people simply don't have, but it didn't stop there. Book ciphers, prime number sequences, Mayan numerals, fragments of classical music theory, hidden inside what sounded like ordinary background audio. References to an obscure occult text written nearly a century earlier, one most solvers had never even heard of until this puzzle forced them to go find a copy. It felt less like one puzzle and more like an entrance exam written by a committee where every member was an expert in a completely different subject and you needed all of them at once. Every answer led to another layer, and every layer is assumed you already understood the one before it. If you got even one symbol wrong, you didn't get a hint. You just got nothing, silence, and had to start over from scratch. Then the puzzle left the internet completely. Solvers who made it far enough began finding physical posters, taped to lampposts and walls in real cities, often on the other side of the planet from wherever they happened to live. Warsaw Saddle, Paris, Seoul, Sydney. Each poster had a QR code, and each QR code led to yet another clue, which meant that to keep going, you sometimes had to physically travel to a specific street corner in a city you'd never set foot in before. According to accounts from people who claim to have been there, some locations hid a second object entirely, tucked behind a sign or wedged into a fence, waiting for whoever showed up next. For most people, that alone would end the search. But if you had the means and the obsession, you kept going. Someone, somewhere, had coordinated a global scavenger hunt with no explanation, no sponsor, and no name attached to any of it. Online, entire communities formed around nothing but this. People who had never met, who you'd think had nothing in common, stayed up together through the night, comparing partial solutions, arguing over which interpretation of a symbol was correct, occasionally accusing each other of sitting on answers just to slow everyone else down. Forums dedicated entirely to Cicada 3301 are still active today, over a decade later, with new members joining who weren't even old enough to be online when it started. Nobody knows exactly how many people started. Estimates suggest thousands attempted the first layer alone. But the number who actually reached the end was almost nothing. A handful of names at most, out of everyone who tried, scattered across different countries, most of whom never spoke to each other again. According to accounts that later surfaced online, some of the people who did finish were contacted directly and asked to keep quiet about what happened next. One frequently cited account describes a security researcher who reportedly signed a non-disclosure agreement before ever speaking publicly about the experience. Again, none of this has ever been confirmed. No organization has ever stepped forward to take credit, and no former winner has ever given a full, verified account of what they found waiting at the very end. Naturally, theories exploded. Some believed it was a recruitment tool for an intelligence agency, testing candidates in the wild without ever revealing who was watching or grading them. Others thought it was a private cybersecurity firm searching for talent nobody else would find through a normal job listing. A smaller group pointed to the occult references buried in the ciphers, tracing them back to a book written by an early 20th century mystic, and suggested something closer to a secretive society, testing loyalty as much as intelligence. But none of these theories has ever been proven. And Cicada 3301 itself never explained anything then or since, leaving every explanation exactly as unverified as the last. In January 2013, it happened again. Same format, same anonymous origin, new set of layers. People who thought they understood the pattern from the year before found themselves stuck almost immediately. But if you'd solved the 2012 puzzle, that knowledge barely helped you here. The puzzle had changed just enough to punish anyone relying on the old solution, as if whoever built it had been watching how the previous year went and adjusted accordingly. 2014 brought a third version, and this one left something behind that still hasn't gone away. Buried deep in that year's layers was a text the solvers named Liber Primus, the first book. It was written entirely in runes, laid out like scripture, and encrypted using a cipher nobody could immediately break. Online communities formed specifically around cracking it. People built their own decryption tools, cross-referenced pages against each other late into the night, and argued for years over the meaning of single symbols. And even now, well over a decade later, large sections of Liber Primus remain undeciphered. If you go looking for it today, you can still find people actively working on it, page by page, with no guarantee an answer even exists on the other side. If you think you could crack the parts nobody else has, you're welcome to try. Nobody's stopped anyone yet. After 2014, the trail goes cold. In 2016, an image appeared bearing the same signature, the same style of message. But this time, something felt off. Many of the people who had tracked the puzzle for years believed it was a copycat, not the real thing, pointing to small inconsistencies in formatting that the original had never had. Whoever created the original puzzle, if they were even still involved by then, never confirmed or denied it either way. Cicada 3301's influence didn't stop with the original puzzle. In the years that followed, other anonymous puzzle makers tried to replicate the formula, releasing their own chains of ciphers hoping to spark the same obsession. Some got attention for a few days, but none of them ever captured the same following, and none carried the same air of legitimacy, because none of them backed up their puzzle with the same level of real-world coordination, posters spanning continents, in an era before this kind of thing was common online. To this day, no government agency, company, or individual has ever claimed responsibility for Cicada 3301. No arrest, no leak, no whistleblower account has ever definitively explained who built it or why. The handful of people who supposedly reached the very end have either stayed silent for over a decade or never come forward at all, and the one document they left behind for everyone else is still in places completely unreadable. Most people still think Cicada 3301 was eventually solved, that somewhere, someone knows the whole story. But the truth is stranger than that. The puzzle was solved layer by layer in public by thousands of people working together in real time, comparing notes on forums, arguing over dead ends, sharing partial answers with total strangers. It's the reason behind it, and the person who built it, that was never solved at all. And unless someone decides to finally explain themselves, it probably never will be. Most people scroll past mysteries like this one without a second thought. But if you're not most people, subscribe. There are more stories like it waiting for you.